I once got a gorgeous bouquet of flowers, right? It was a mixture of lilies and roses. It was absolutely stunning. So I trimmed the leaves of the stem, I nipped the bud, and I put it in a vase. But I didn't really know how to care for flowers at the time. I just like the look and smell of it. So it didn't get enough sunlight to grow to its full potential. And after about a week and a half or thereabouts, it withered. Why? Because plants can't live away from source, which is the sun. Now, every time I remember this incident, it reminds me of how we as humans want to live away from our source. We want to live on our own terms and do whatever it is we like. Now, if you ask a kid who their source is, where they come from, they'll tell you their parents. Then where do their parents come from? They'll say their grandparents, then great-grandparents. Now, if you trace it back to the first man, which is Adam, who's Adam's source? God. So ultimately, that's our source, right? Now, people don't want to live without their parents, but they want to live without God. Why? Because they know their parents, right? They've spent time with them long enough to know their character and to love them. Now, there's an interview of a man I watched that lost his kid. The child had a blood disease, and but when the child got really sick, he did everything he could. He fasted, he prayed, he did literally everything, but the child still passed away. And then he did an interview and was talking about how he prayed and he fasted and he did everything he could, and God still did not save his child. And he then went on to say, oh, God is not real. At that point he stopped believing God is not real, God is not real. Now, as much as people felt sorry for him, a lot of people still judged him for speaking his truth. Now, in that moment, that was his reality, because as a parent, he could not understand why another parent, which will be God, would let their child down, right? So there was a time when I was in high school, I was really ill. I think it was a bug going around. So I went to, there's a clinic called the sick bay. So I went to the sick bay and I was admitted, right? All the beds were filled up, but there were still so many sick people. So they were looking to discharge a few people that weren't as ill that evening to admit more people into the sick bay. So I told the nurse, well, you can have my bed tonight. And she said, no, you're really ill. We can't discharge you and everything. Now, when a child is that ill, it was their duty to inform the parent. So I said to the nurse, did you speak to my mom? And she said, yes, just about 10 minutes ago. At this time, it was about past 6 p.m. in the evening. Now, from where I resided to my high school, it was about almost 4 hours drive, right? So so she said, yes, I spoke to somebody. I left a message that you weren't feeling too well. And I said, well, if you did leave a message, then you can have my bed tonight because I'll be going home tonight. She said, oh no, it's not possible. It's already past 6. It takes about 4 hours to drive here. And I said, okay. Round about past 11 p.m. or about quarter to 12, I heard chaos outside. And as I heard chaos outside, I could hear somebody's voice saying, well, try to stop me from picking up my child. So I started to drag myself up because I knew it was my mom. So I got up and then I looked at the nurse and said to her, well, you can have my bed. My mom is here to pick me up. She was like, no, that's not possible. Lo and behold, my mom walked in, more like barged in actually, and she came to pick me up. Now, thing is, would I have been disappointed if she didn't come? Absolutely not. Because as far as I was concerned, that means she did not get the message. Why? Because I knew her, so I knew her character. That's how God wants us to know and trust him. But to have that knowledge of him, we have to spend time with him. We have to communicate, which is prayer. We have to study the word. I have heard people condemn Genesis 22 as diabolical when God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. So people have said, what kind of God will say that? What kind of God will require that, even if it's just a test? But Abraham was about to bear the name the father of faith, and he had to earn it. But here people are crying more than the bereaved because Abraham himself wasn't bothered. He had spent enough time with God to know his character, to know that God could not tell a lie even if he tried. Isaac was a child of promise, so there was absolutely no way God would let him sacrifice Isaac. And if he did, he would raise him back from the dead. He knew that much, and that was made apparent when he told his servant, "You stay here with the donkey, the boy and I will go and worship and return." He included Isaac in the return journey. And even when Isaac himself asked about the sacrifice, he said to him, God himself will provide it, because he knew it wasn't going to be Isaac. He trusted God that much. The reason why it's so easy to lose hope and turn away from God when things go wrong is because we don't know him well enough. If we did, we will know that everything that happens is for the greater good. And we cannot have that knowledge outside of God's presence. However, a lot of things get in the way, doesn't it? We have work, we have businesses to attend to, we have errands to run, we have relationships to nurture. However, we somehow manage to create time to pray and fast when we have a need. If you remember the story of Cain and Abel, I've heard a lot of people give reasons as to why Abel's offering was accepted by God and not Cain's. But here's what I discovered. In the Bible, Cain's industry was famine, which was a metaphor for Mesopotamia and Egypt, which were both enemies at the time. Being a farmer at the time meant settling in one land and making it fruitful by producing crops. It also meant that same land may become a village with houses near its crops. Now, it also meant there will be farming practices that would poison the land. So farming was very tedious work. So taking time out to pray, spend time with God, meditate would have been extremely difficult practice. So Cain pretty much had no knowledge of God, and you could tell in his character. He had no godly attributes to him. He was described to be jealous, arrogant, selfish, and he had no remorse of wrongdoing. Abel's industry, on the other hand, was herding, which means he could be anywhere. His profession made him nomadic and self-sufficient, so he could live a simple life and create time to spend time with God, to pray, to communicate with God. They were both children to Adam and Eve, who were the first humans, so that made them the first family. Now, at the time, no laws had been made as to what was acceptable sacrifice to God. But Abel knew God. He had spent enough time in the presence of God to know his likes and his dislikes. So it's safe to say he knew exactly what to offer as sacrifice that would be pleasing to God. And it was recorded that his sacrifice was looked upon with favor. What I'm saying is, God is not a betting game you run to whenever you need to hit the jackpot. If you want continuous favor and mercy over your life, you have to pray, spend time, and stay connected to Source. Namaste.